Good morning, everyone. My name's Logan, and welcome to Church Reviews. Alright, so I just made it to the church. So today I'm going to a Wesleyan church. So this is in, I think Keymar somewhere. Anyways, this is my first time going to any sort of Methodist type of church. So this should be interesting. I got here around an hour early, so just so I had more time to record some stuff. So basically what I'm going to be doing today, just like any other episode of Church Reviews, is I'm going to be going to the church, attending the service, and then afterwards, giving my thoughts on it. I hope that you'll enjoy this, and I'll see you on the inside. I'm back. Alright, so I am back. I drove home real quickly. I figured it'd be easier to record this once, I was out of church. I didn't want to have to, do like multiple takes and stuff when I was still in the parking lot. So I did like the church service. That's the first thing I will say. I did enjoy being there. It wasn't like boring or anything or really dry. It wasn't like, I was having a hard time like following along with like with some other services I've been to, especially the ones with like the hymn books. I always have a hard time with that type of stuff just because you're flipping through all these pages and stuff. But basically the way I'm going to do this breakdown is I'm going to basically say the things I liked about the church, and then after that I'm going to say the things I didn't like about the church. So the first thing I liked about this church is I really liked the message that the teacher gave. Now, they don't have a pastor, like a senior pastor. They have some like youth pastors and stuff, like children's church pastor, but they don't have a senior pastor, and so they're just having guest speakers come in and teach. So this guy came in from, I think, like Hearse, PA, to basically preach at the church that's like 90 minutes away from it. And he basically talked about how that as believers we're supposed to have Jesus as the foundation of our faith. This is basically what his sermon was about. He was basically teaching on Corinthians chapter 1, and basically he was saying we're supposed to have Jesus as the foundation of our faith. We're not supposed to, look to like our pastor or something to be the foundation of our faith. We're supposed to look to Jesus to be the foundation of our faith, and we're not supposed to just expect the pastor or like the other people in the church, to do stuff for the kingdom. We each all have a kingdom purpose that we're supposed to go out and fulfill. Right, and one of the verses he mentioned was 1 Corinthians 3:11, which says, "For other foundation can no man lay than that is laid, which is Jesus Christ." And so that was basically what his message was about having Jesus being the foundation of our faith and our church. And I think that's a really important thing, because I think a lot of people idolize pastors too much. Is they look so much to the pastor that they're not looking enough to Jesus and looking to that personal relationship with Christ. So I really like that about his sermon. After that, we had the Bible study. No, the Bible study was before. So I got there at, what was it, like 9 o'clock, and we had this Bible study there, right? And that was basically, Bible study was basically about, it wasn't like anything like super, interesting. It was basically about how that It's basically about the rapture and do babies like go to heaven? Will babies be raptured up basically during the rapture, because they believe in the pre-tribulation rapture. And so basically that was what it was about. They had us, I forgot the guy's name. I think it was Rakai Zacharias or something. I basically watched a CD from this guy, and then afterwards we talked about it a little bit. So it was meh, not really much my type of thing. You know, I tend to, when I've studied the Bible, I tend to more or less focus about you know, actually going out and doing stuff, and how we're actually supposed to live and walk in our faith in the here and now. That tends to be more of, I guess when I study the Bible, I would tend to try and study more of a practical aspect to it, if that makes any sense, you know. So I don't really have, honestly, I don't really have opinions on like the tribulation really as much, or like some like that eschatology type of stuff. So it wasn't really my cup of tea. So now we're gonna talk about the bad. Alright, so now for the bad. The thing I didn't like about the church, the thing that really just rubbed me the wrong way, was that they were commercializing the church. This is really a problem for more of the modern type of churches, you know. I didn't honestly expect to find this in like a Methodist church, basically. Now I know the Wesleyan churches, they're not like the same as like the United Methodist Church and stuff, but basically they're Methodist. So I expected to find this more type of stuff in like a non-denominational church or something, or you know, just not in like a Methodist church basically. But the thing that they had was they basically, and they weren't like talking about this during the service, but they had this little postcard, and I'll show a picture of it on like their like board, and it was like church merch shop, and they were selling like sweaters for like $35, a hat for $20, and what else? I think it was like a sticker for like not $6, $6 for a car sticker, and it had like their church name on it and all that stuff, you know. And so I was just like, is this really the way it's supposed to be, right? Because I don't like it when people basically, the one thing I don't like about a lot of these modern churches is they blur the line between being a church and a business. Because when you're a church, you're really supposed to minister to your community, right? But if you're using that basically as a means of making money to like sell stuff and products and stuff, then are you really in it for the right reasons? Do you really have the right motives, right? Because if you're seeing your church as a business, or that type of mentality starting to get in your head a little bit, and then when it comes time to actually help someone in your church, are you going to actually help them because Christ, you know, told you to help them? You know, are you actually going to show the compassion and even the self-sacrifice that, you know, in a lot of modern churches, they don't like to talk about this, you know, that picking up your cross and following Jesus, and that, you know, when we follow God, you know, and I've experienced this in my life myself, even getting the hearse. I had to sacrifice getting a car just so I'd have, you know, just so I could hold out to have the hearse to actually do the ministry I wanted to do. I could have just gotten any normal car, but I waited 8 months and diligently searched for this hearse so I could do this ministry, and how that actually getting my driver's license in part, because I needed to have, because I could have gotten an easier car to drive in when I was learning to drive. And I held out to get the hearse instead, which was even harder to drive than the car I was actually learning how to drive in. So it's like, you know, but there is that self-sacrifice in, you know, ministry. And if you're basically commercializing your church, if you're basically running it as a business, and you have that mentality there, then when it comes time to actually help people for Christ, are you really going to be doing that? Are you really going to sacrifice to help your congregation, or are you just gonna see them as like numbers on a spreadsheet and not really help them? That's the main thing I didn't like. And now it's just time for, I don't know, the miscellaneous stuff, I guess. All right, so other than that, other than the good and the bad, there's just some things at the church that were, you know, I'll talk about now. So the first thing is they were a very welcoming church. You know, they were very nice to me. You know, they weren't condescending or anything like that. They're a very friendly congregation, I will say that. And I think that is generally like a thing with, this probably isn't like 100% true, but with more like modern churches, they tend to be more welcoming and stuff than like, you know, older, more rigid, regimented churches, you know. And that's probably a really, really broad generalization, but that's sort of at least how I see things now. Okay. So their worship music, it was modern type of stuff, you know, there weren't like any old hymns and stuff. And they basically were, so they had their piano, they also had their like guitars, and they had electric guitar, which is kind of interesting. You don't really see that a lot in churches, you know. So, and the music wasn't too loud either. It was, because I went to this one church once, and I felt like I needed to like put like hearing protection in my ears. It was like that loud. So it's a good thing it wasn't too loud, but also wasn't too quiet, you know, where like their instruments are like drowning stuff out and stuff, you know, because certain churches also have that problem as well. But I don't really see that as like a big like issue or anything. Another thing too is I did ask him a little bit about sort of Methodist theology, you know. So one thing I did ask was about like infant baptism, because I know that Lutheran churches and like I think Episcopalian churches and the Catholic and a few other denominations, they practice it. So I was wondering, like, I didn't really know too much about the Methodists, and I had heard that they practice infant baptism, but when I asked, and I know the Wesleyans aren't the same as like the United Methodists and stuff, but basically they said they're like the Baptists, they only baptize adults and stuff. So that was kind of interesting to learn about, but I wasn't able to have like really deep theological conversations like I've had at other churches. So that was a little bit disappointing. But you know, that's just the way it was, you know. And as for just like the parking in the church, and just it was easy to pull in and park and stuff. It wasn't that hard, or you know, I don't really have anything else to say, honestly. You know, it's a good church that has problems with it, and I think that's the thing with most churches. They'll have good stuff and they'll have bad stuff, and it's really up to you how much of the bad stuff you're really willing to deal with, or how much of people's flaws you're willing to deal with when going to a church, as opposed to, you know, how much of the good stuff do you want. And for every person, that's obviously going to be different when you're attending a church. So anyways, thank you for watching this video. If you want to see more of this type of content, you can always subscribe to the He Is Risen Hearse. If not, that's completely alright. You know, I'm not going to be like begging you for a subscription or anything like that. So that's it. Have a nice day, and catch you later.